Good evening, Cape Ann and the North Shore. Welcome to the Good News program. My name is Bill Robinson, and I'm your host for this evening's program. And all the way from Belgium, Yvan-Pierre Marlier. Thank you for coming.
You're most welcome.
How was your How was your flight over?
Well, actually, I live in Ipswich, so it's not too bad.
Okay. I told everybody you were from Belgium. Well, you are from Belgium, but now residing in Ipswich.
Correct.
So
yes.
You did have a good flight when you came. We just didn't tell them what.
Yeah.
You know? Dynamite testimony, folks. I just want to take a couple of minutes and explain to what the testimony is. It's a story of this man's life and how Jesus Christ came into it and changed it. And actually, along the way, he was preparing him and building it up. And you say, wow, well, that's what he does. He can take a mess and turn it into a message, okay?
Yes.
So we're going to go back to Belgium and trace his steps through Belgium and France and Spain and all the different things that God used to bring him to the place where he became part of him in reality, really part of him. So you were born in Belgium with one brother there, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
Would you say normal family or dysfunctional?
Well, I would say because my mom eventually died when I was 12, and there was a very long divorce beforehand, and the year after my mom's death were, very difficult. I wouldn't say it was a very functional family.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's being generous, huh? So, through all this, how did this affect you? I mean, you had your father, and he took care of you guys, but he put you into a boarding school, you assume, yeah?
That's right, yeah. So my dad was always very interested in his own career, in his professional career.
Yeah.
And I guess he kind of rested on my mom to provide affection and, just care to us. And so his job was the most important thing to him. Mm-hmm. And so when the divorce started, in those days, the divorce procedure was extremely long. It would be, in my case, it would be up to 3 years, and you could not get a divorce. It was a separation. So really the affection element that my mom was disappeared out of the picture. And so when we were put, my brother and I, in that boarding school, it just increased just the emptiness, I would say, the affection emptiness, the lack of affection in our lives. I think that's one of the main things that comes out from that time.
Yeah, so when the family's not there, there's a lack of love, like, huh?
Oh, certainly, yeah, certainly, yeah. There was no love, very, very little love.
Okay, so you're like in an emotional wilderness, practically.
Yeah, exactly.
How would you, with no mother absent, your father, there's like you explained to me earlier, there's no warm nest for you and your brother. Yes,
that's right. So what I understand now is that for a young man or a young woman to grow properly, you need a dad and you need a mom, and each person in the couple has a different gift to bring into the growth of an individual. And so when those two elements, or one of them, is missing, what's going to happen is that instead of having everything you need at home, you're going to start to look for other things. You're going to start to look above the walls around your house, and you're going to start to look in the world to see if you can find some satisfaction somewhere else, because there's a thirst for love in each person. There's a desire to be loved, which is very normal, and normally the dad and the mom provide that love in different ways, but that's what they do, yeah.
Yeah, so in your case, when you started to look over the wall, you lived in a boarding school next to your grandparents, you said.
Yeah.
And then you moved to another boarding school in another town near your father.
Yeah.
But you're still emotionally detached, but you started to look over the wall, like most kids do.
Yeah, That's right. I mean, with my mom, I was introduced to rock music a lot. So music was really a strong part of my childhood. But when I became a teenager, it became even more important. And so I started to go to my first concert, rock concert. And there I met this young man who was rolling some stuff in his tobacco. And then I realized it was eucalyptus leaves. But he was just trying to pose, you know, hey, I'm a cool guy, I'm, you know, taking some dope here, or looks like it anyway. And later on, lo and behold, that man that I met at that concert, I just met him as I was taking a bike ride near my dad's house, and I found out that he was a neighbor, and so we got in, you know, we got together quite regularly, and I found out that he was not just smoking that type of leaves, and so that led to the use of, you know, hashish and marijuana, stuff like that. And, you know, we were still young, I mean, perhaps 14, 15-year-old. And at the same time, also, I had a neighbor at the end of my street, a friend of mine, who said, hey, there's this lady at the end of the street who really likes to sleep with everybody. So I was, you know, I was a young man. And
you're peeking over the wall.
Well, you know, when you hear something like that, it's wow, you know, it's like, ooh, I'm going to know the taboo thing, you know, the sexual thing. And so I went to see that lady, and that neighbor of mine did not lie. She was really into sex. I mean, it was crazy. So those two elements came together, drugs and sex. And so that obviously was, you know, beyond the family walls, that's for sure, yes.
So, so now you're what, 15 years old, and school is over for you?
Yeah, so when sex and drugs came into the picture, I lost more and more interest in the academics, and eventually I dropped out of school. I was in, I was a junior. I dropped out of high school, and I decided, well, you know, I didn't get love and happiness in the normal world for following my, you know, what my dad wanted for me and all of that. My dad had great plans. He wanted me to be a lawyer, so I was studying Greek and Latin in that boarding school, and it was very up there anyway. And so I just threw all of that by the door, you know, by the window, and I just decided to sleep during the day and live at night and live la vida loca, just crazy life, you know, go out with my friends, smoke dope, and just be with that neighbor's wife. Yeah, because she was married. That's another thing that was pretty crazy. And that kind of existence lasted, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years, but it, you know, there was like a slope down. There were several things that
you told me you didn't get a haircut for 4 or 5 years there.
Say again?
You didn't have a haircut for 4 or 5 years?
Oh yeah, of course there was the outward appearance. So I had the dreadlocks, I didn't comb my hair, so I had long hair but not combed, so you can imagine what mess that was. And you know, I was just like a hippie, if you want.
Yeah. And so this was going to the concerts and finding food, and you could do everything.
Yeah, I thought, you know, just having sex and drugs and rock music would be satisfying me. So indeed I went to a lot of concerts, and I'm not saying going to a concert is a wrong thing, but you know, that was really what I was trying to fill my life with, and the same with the two other things. But as I was mentioning earlier, things started to get worse and worse. I mean, especially on the drug side, I met some people, and then even with the first friends, we started to take heavier drugs such as cocaine and LSD. We were trying everything. You know, it was a bit the hippie mentality, just, you know, explore. That was really a big thing. Explore as much as you can, have as many experiences as you can. Okay.
So now part of your repertoire is you're starting to travel a little bit.
Yes, that's right. There was a lot of hitchhiking around Europe, so that was really, you know, pleasant experience. But there was some time in my life when I had a bunch of friends who broke into a pharmacy in Belgium, and they stole quite a bunch of morphine. It was in a shape of powder. It was quite a lot. I wouldn't know in American weight system, but it was a big pouch anyway. And so the guy who had stolen that said, well, I'm afraid of the police, so I'm going to give that to you if you want it.
Oh, nice.
So I was really pleased. Wow, I had like a big bunch of opium, and I could get high all the time for free. And the thing with opium is that you don't eat. Anything with heroin or morphine or opium-based kind of dope, you don't eat anything. You just vomit anything you eat. So I was high all the time for days and weeks on end with no food, and I was getting very, very sick. And so I spoke to one of the friends that was in the group and in those days, and he said, well, I know those guys in France, and they live a different kind of life, and they live in nature, and they're very interested in philosophy and religion and all sorts of mystical stuff like that. It was a hippie commune, really.
So you ended up in France in this place?
I ended up there, yeah. And it was really an amazing place. It was so beautiful. I mean, it was, what's the word for that? Where a mill, a water mill, you had a stream of water, and then the big wheel, and then the house itself, like centuries old and very big and far away from the smallest village. So we were lost in the countryside, and there were several hippies living there. Yeah.
And they were into mystical stuff and
drugs
and open sex and everything.
Oh yeah. It was really the
they
hippie.
were out there, man.
Yeah. The hippie commune, just classic.
So how did that go? You stayed there for a few years?
In and out, yeah. So at first I was really impressed just by the lifestyle they had. They were living with no electricity. It was very peaceful, and they seemed to be full of love and just like they got everything together, So yeah, it was very interesting. And among those people, there was one lady. She was married, and she took some strong interest in me, and eventually we became lovers. And I think the big difference between the relationship with this lady and the one from Belgium is that for the first time in my life, I discovered love. I mean, it was very weird love, it was an adultery, a married lady and all of that, but for some reason, I could love somebody else than myself.
Okay.
They were, and I was taken by that. I was like on cloud nine. I think that's the experience. I was really, amazed by that person. And another thing that happened that was really important in my life in those days was the fact that I could not, by looking at nature in that beautiful property, I could not think that there was not a God. Because to me, it was like a masterpiece. It was like a piece of art, just looking at the sunset, the sunrise, just the beauty of the woods, just the tranquility, the peace of that stream flowing by the house. I mean, there had to be a God. It could not have just been, the fruit of I don't know, atoms getting together and evolution or whatnot.
Yeah. So her husband came on the scene?
Oh, yeah. So he was a heroin dealer, he was a hippie apparently too, but he eventually found out that I was sleeping with her, and he didn't like that too much. And what really broke the camel's back was that when I found his personal stash, he was growing some weed there and on this, in one of the rooms, and I made a joint of that, and he really didn't like that. He actually literally broke my face with his foot. He came, and so now I have a fake tooth as a result of that.
Wow.
But yeah, so it was not all peace and love, really. It was not all hippie, to the core. There was some human nature, some true human nature there.
So that broke up, though.
Well, that made things rather difficult for me to see his wife. I mean, I still did see her a few times, and but I must say that things were coming to an end. I mean, in the sense that I had been using drugs at that point for several years, all sorts of drugs, and it was having a very negative effect on me. I was turning into a very paranoid person. I was also not knowing anything about the real world. I had never had a job in my life. So my love relationship was also falling apart, obviously. I mean, all my values were coming to an end, you know. And it's very interesting because there's a verse in the Bible that sums that up real well. It's in Ecclesiastes, and it says, vanity of vanity, everything is vanity. And that was exactly my life. And I was hit by that verse because I was hitchhiking, so I was out of that commune in France, and I decided to look for the true values in my life. And one of them was trying to find God, that God that I had seen in nature. I was trying to find who I was, and I was trying to find why I was here on earth. And so I would do that through traveling. So I did a test traveling to find God, you know, and I wanted to go to travel all around Italy. Yeah, we love Italy. And so I traveled all around Italy with no money, and God provided. I was I mean, I had food and I had a place to stay. You know, I was never let down. And so I really saw God alive there. And I thought, well, since that worked, I'm going to go to Africa. Just travel all over the place and try to find God and so forth. And so I started this trip, and as I said, this pastor in France gave me a Bible.
Oh, you met a pastor in France?
Yeah, just for a very short trip. You know, hitchhiking, you can be taken for long trips or very short. And this man around Paris was, you know, traveling there. He gave me a ride, and he said, do you have a Bible? I said, no. First he asked me, do you read the Bible? I said, yes. Do you have one? I said, no. Would you like one? And I said, yes. And so he gave me that Bible, and so I read it, and that's where I read that passage in Ecclesiastes, and that really touched me, because I thought, wow, this book, the Bible, is not just a religious thing. It's alive. I mean, it's real. It's authentic. Yeah. So I traveled through, you know, France and Spain, hitchhiking. Again, no money, looking for God and all of that. It's a long trip. It's like 1,500 miles, something like that. And well, God was providing for me. I had food, I had places to stay. Sometimes I would sleep on the side of the road with my sleeping bag, but, you know, I was safe. I had no problems. And eventually I arrived in a little town, or little town in the south of Spain called Torremolinos. And there I prayed to God. I said, again, a God that I didn't really know, just that I had seen through nature. I had my own soup also of spiritual stuff, you know, the mystical stuff from that hippie commune mixed with Rastafari stuff, you know, reggae philosophy. Anyway, a big soup of stuff. And so I prayed to that God, and I said, I need a place to sleep, I need a place to wash, and I need a place to eat, because I had no money, no nothing. And wow, a car stops with two Christians who used to be taking heroin, and they said to me, Jesus changed our life, we're new creatures, and we have a new life now. And I'm like, oh, you know, that's nice for you guys. But I was so hungry, I didn't really care about hearing their story. But, you know, I said, yeah, I used to be a choir boy, you know, in my days. And yeah, I believe in Jesus. Yeah, that's cool. And, you know, and then they said to me, well, you know, there's a place where we can take you, and probably you could have a meal there. Would you be interested? And I said, yeah, sure. And so I had my three requests, my three prayers answered. God gave me a place to eat, to sleep, and to wash. And on top of that, I had this huge Swiss guy preaching Jesus being the only way to God to me. And I was like, you know, thanks, but no thanks. I can find God on my own way. I don't need Jesus. And the next day, I left. And the 1,500 miles hitchhiking was so easy, but the last 120 up to that harbor to Morocco were very, very hard. I mean, I had to walk most of the time. And so eventually I arrived there, and my plan was to get on that ship that would cross the Gibraltar Strait as a clandestine passenger. And
in other words, that means he was going to sneak on. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so the first night I tried, and this group of people were smoking a joint, so I couldn't pass that, you know. So I sat with them, smoke, and I was so high. All right, I'm not going to do it tonight. So I just went on a bench, slept it off, and then tried the next day, you know. But I had my dreadlocks. I really looked like a hippie, and so I was like sticking like a sore thumb, and I couldn't get any job, obviously, you know. So I went back to my bag that I had put on the side just to look for a job, and it was stolen. So it's like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? And I mean, not that I had much. I just had, you know, a few clothes and just a bar of soap or something. Anyway, so eventually, since I couldn't find anything in that town, I thought, let's go back to those Christians. You know, maybe they're going to help me, give me some food or at least some money. So I went there, and I just stayed with them for a week, observing them very closely, and they were just happy on God, happy on Jesus. So I just said, well, I'm going to try their stuff. I have tried everything else. I'm going to try Jesus.
Now, this was men and women living in a like a commune.
Yeah, that's right. Like 30 of them, and I couldn't believe that they had no open sex, that they were just happy like that with no dope, no alcohol. I mean, that was beyond me. I mean, I had tried everything to be happy, you know, to fill the void inside, and it had never worked. But those guys with just Jesus, just prayer meetings and Bible studies, and just worship, they were happy. Yeah, worship. And so I couldn't understand that, and I thought, well, let's try that too. And so after a week, I just went to the bedroom where I had a bed, and I knelt there and I said, well, Jesus, if you're really alive, I want to know you. If you really, you know, what those people are telling me you are, that you're not just, you know, a name in a book or a philosophy that was preached a long time ago, but that you're a real person that can change people, that can really fill and change their lives, well, I want to know you. So I just prayed that sincerely, you know, just without knowing basically what I was going to get into. And I prayed that, and suddenly I felt a deep peace like I never had before. I mean, I had peace after eating a nice meal, or maybe peace when I smoked my first joints. But, you know, a real deep peace like that I never experienced. And so that was my first experience with the Lord Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
God is good.
God is good all the time. How many years is this? How old were you when you came to the Lord?
I was 19 and a half. Yeah, so I lived in Spain for a little bit. And
you were 19, almost 20 years old when you accepted Jesus.
Yeah, it was in August of 82. Gosh, people are going to know my age now.
Well, we can do the math, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, that's, you know, all this time, what I'm listening to this story, that God is orchestrating the circumstances. You meet the pastor, and that's not in Paris. That's a divine appointment. That's not a mistake. That's not just happenstance. Yeah. God has a plan, even when we talked about before, but he has a plan for everybody.
Yes.
And then when we seek his face diligently, then he reveals it.
Yes.
He starts to tell us, you know, it's not a AAA roadmap. It's a tour guide. It's one step at a time.
One step at a time. That's true. Yeah.
And, no, it's amazing that, wow, and you stayed in that for like almost 5 years.
Yeah.
You hooked up with them.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I would like to, you know, a couple of other questions. But this, you know, after you asked the Lord into your life, this wasn't like, you know, you still had struggles.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
See, you know, we say, well, you ask Jesus into your life, things are going to, no. You ask him into your life, not your mess. You say, okay, clean me up so I can deal with this mess. You know, it's a process.
It's a long process.
Yeah, it's a long process, but you operating on his power now, not yours.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's like you're not alone to face life anymore. There's someone who understands you, and above all, someone who loves you. I think that's perhaps the strongest point, the strongest thing that brought me into that crazy life when I was a kid and a teenager is the lack of love, the lack of affection. Yeah. But in meeting Jesus, I met someone who loved me and accepted me just as I am, you know, who was putting no condition on his love. And I think that's what is so amazing with him, is that his love has no condition, no limit.
Unconditional.
It's fresh every day.
Yeah.
We can go to him just as we are. We don't need to be a special, super
Yeah.
spiritual person. We can just be just as we are,
Yeah.
and God's acceptance and forgiveness and just joy in wanting to just be with us is incredible. And it just floors me is that, you know, it's always fresh. Like Jeremiah says, you know, your mercies are new every morning.
Wow. See, what we do at this point in the program is we invite the people in the privacy of their own home to do what you did in the privacy of your own bedroom and say, Lord, you know what? We're all, the thing is, God has made us. He stacked the deck, because the only way we're going to get peace is when we invite Him in.
Right.
He's made it that way.
Yeah. And
we can search here and do that. But, you know, out there in television land, if you have that emptiness and you say, you know, I've done what this guy did, you know, and more, you know, and it didn't prove to be satisfying. You're empty. And I'm telling you, the only way that you're going to fill that emptiness is with Jesus Christ, just like Yvonne did, you know. What do I do to do that? Well, there's 3 or 4 steps here. You acknowledge the fact that you're empty. You acknowledge the fact that Jesus Christ went to the cross, took your sins, nailed them to the cross, forgave you and forgot about them.
Yes.
And He wants to live within you. And so what you do is you say, you know what? I'm going to do what Yvonne did. I'm just going to ask you into my life. I'm sorry for making a mess. Sorry for screwing up. I know you paid the price. I know I understand as best I can what that cross is about, but I want you to come into my life. That's all. That's what you have to do. And then you know what? Say, Lord, just like Yvonne was touring Italy, you needed help. So say, Lord, supply people for me that I can be around and not of my old friends. I need to be around people that know Jesus, to surround me with fellowship and get a Bible, get into the Word of God. There's a website coming up that you can contact us with, and we'll help you. We'll assist you to do this. You wrap your own words around it, because we're all different. But you know what? It's not the words, it's the condition of your heart. And when you say that sincerely and honestly, He'll show up. Trust me, folks. Yvonne, I'm going to ask you to come back and tell us about what happens afterwards. Would you do that?
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure.
Okay. And he's not flying from Belgium. He's flying in from Ipswich. Yvonne, thank you so much for coming. And out there in television land, God bless you and have a great week. And we'll see you next week.